My so-called best friend, Mia Carter, and my childhood sweetheart, Daniel Wilson, joined forces to hide my Stanford admission letter just so they could be together openly. They watched me repeat a year in our small county high school, watched me break down, go mad, and finally die one rainy night in a desperate car crash. In their eyes, I was the only obstacle in their path to happiness. As long as I disappeared, they could have everything they wanted. But they don't know I've been reborn. The moment I returned to was the night before the college entrance exam. Right now, they're both standing in front of me, each holding a cup of hot milk. Their faces full of fake concern. Natalie, don't be nervous. You'll do great, they coaxed. Looking at their hypocritical smiles, my stomach churned violently. In my last life, it was this very cup of drugged milk that left me groggy during the first exam, nearly pushing my essay into off-topic disaster. My math paper too. I made mistakes so basic I could have solved them in my sleep. That poor start wrecked my mindset. I ended up missing Stanford by just a few points, forced into a major I didn't even like. Even so, I still received an official admission letter from Stanford University. But that letter, the one that could have changed my fate, was hidden away by the two people I trusted most, Mia Carter, the friend I treated like a sister, and Daniel Wilson, the boy I had secretly loved my whole youth. They let me believe I had failed. I watched as my parents scolded me, as my relatives mocked me. They watched me, in despair for my future, choose to repeat another year at Continental. One high. Meanwhile, Mia got into a local university, Daniel into an ordinary school in Beijing. At last, they could live their dream of a long-distance romance. From time to time, they'd call me pretending to comfort me. Voices dripping with pity. Natalie, it's okay. One more year isn't so bad, we'll be waiting for you. Natalie, you're so smart. Next year you'll definitely make it into Stanford. Then we can all reunite in Beijing. How laughable. The crushing pressure of repeating destroyed me. By the time of the second exam, I was shattered. My score plummeted so badly I didn't even make the second tier cutoff. I became the joke of the entire county. The once celebrated future Stanford student Natalie White lost her mind. And the final straw, accidentally overhearing one of their phone calls. On the other end, Mia Carter was laughing, her voice dripping with mockery. Daniel Wilson, did you see Natalie White's pathetic face? She still thinks we're her best friends. If she ever found out we hid her admission letter, wouldn't she just die of rage? Daniel chuckled indignantly. She's just too stupid. Serves her right. She was always in our way. If her mother hadn't kept bragging to mine about how smart she was, my mom never would have forced me to apply to the same school as her. Well, it doesn't matter now, she's ruined. And we're finally free. That moment was like plunging into an ice abyss. So all my suffering, all my downfall, had been nothing but a carefully orchestrated trap. I staggered into the storm outside, screaming into the night sky, asking the heavens why they were so cruel. And then an out-of-control truck came barreling toward me. My short, ridiculous life ended right there. When I opened my eyes again, I was back here. The night before the exam. At my desk. Mia Carter slid a cup of loving milk in front of me, her voice so soft it could drip honey. Natalie, drink this. Calm your nerves. Tomorrow's a big day, you don't want to be too tense. Daniel Wilson stood behind her, chiming in smoothly, yeah, Natalie White. With your skills, Stanford is a sure thing. We already agreed we'll all go to Beijing together. I sneered in my heart. Go to Beijing together? Fine. This time not only will I go, I'll drag you both down into the mud and make sure you never crawl out again. I picked up the milk and drained it in one go under their watchful, expectant eyes. Then, right in front of them, I bolted into the bathroom, locked the door, and forced it all back up with my fingers down my throat. Outside, they knocked frantically on the door. Natalie, are you okay? Are you too nervous? Natalie White, open up. Don't scare us like this. I rinsed my mouth, opened the door, and put on a pale but stubborn smile. It's nothing. Probably just nerves, my stomach's a little off. Mia Carter and Daniel Wilson exchanged a glance. Deep in their eyes, a spark of triumph flashed. They thought I was still the same gullible fool. Mia rushed to help me back to bed, wearing her mask of concern. It's our fault, we shouldn't have disturbed you. Lie down and rest. We'll leave you be. Daniel followed her, led with feigned worry. Yeah, you need your energy for tomorrow. Playing their parts perfectly, they tucked me in and left, satisfied. I lay still, listening as their footsteps faded down the hall. Their muffled whispers drifting back to me. Looks like the medicine worked. After vomiting like that, there's no way she'll be in good shape tomorrow. That was Mia Carter's voice. That's better. As long as she screws up and scores lower than me, my mom will finally stop pressuring me. That was Daniel Wilson's voice. Relax, everything's already planned. Once she repeats the year, the two of us, I couldn't hear the rest, but I could already picture the ugly smiles twisting across their faces. I closed my eyes, my mind racing as I began plotting my revenge. Letting them fail to get into good universities? That would be far too merciful. What I wanted was for them to taste the very same despair I endured in my last life. I wanted to watch them soar with pride, only to be ripped from the clouds and slammed into the mud. I wanted to see them turn against each other. Consumed by hatred, bound in a lifetime of misery. The next morning, the college entrance exam arrived as scheduled. My parents treated it like a battle. Breakfast was spread out like a holiday feast. Natalie, eat more. You'll need your strength for the test. Don't be nervous, just treat it like another mock exam. I nodded quietly and ate. In the mirror, my face looked pale from last night's forced vomiting, but my eyes were clearer and sharper than ever. When I stepped outside, there they were again, Mia Carter and Daniel Wilson. One was my neighbor, the other my classmate. From grade school to high school, the three of us had been inseparable. Two outsiders. We were the unbreakable iron triangle. Today, Mia was dressed in a delicate white dress, all innocence and purity. The moment she saw me, she ran over and hooked her arm through mine. Natalie, let's head to the exam hall together. I'll cheer you on. Daniel followed, holding a clear folder filled with pens and his exam admission ticket. Natalie White, better double check you've packed everything. You don't want to panic at the last minute. So thoughtful. If I hadn't been reborn, I might have gone to my grave still fooled by their false kindness. I pulled my arm free from Mia's grasp and said coolly, no need. My parents are driving me. You two go on ahead. A flicker of surprise crossed Mia's face, but she quickly forced a smile. All right then. We'll wait for you at the exam gates. I ignored her and slid into my father's car. From the rearview mirror, I caught a glimpse of them standing side by side, sunlight painting them like a perfect pair. Mia leaned toward Daniel, whispering something, and he responded with a gentle smile. The sight pierced me like a blade. In my last life, I was blind enough to believe Daniel might return my feelings, foolish enough to believe our trio's bond would last forever. Looking back now, it was laughable, pathetic, even. I tore my gaze away. Dad, let's go. At the exam hall, of course, I saw them again. They stood right at the school's front gate, as if waiting deliberately. The moment I got out of the car, Mia waved wildly and shouted, Natalie, over here. Students and parents nearby turned to look, envy in their eyes. Isn't that Natalie White? Her friendship with Mia Carter and Daniel Wilson is so close. Yeah, what a perfect trio, handsome boy, beautiful girls. What a sight. Expressionless, I walked over. Mia once again tried to link arms with me, but I sidestepped her. Her hand froze midair, awkward and stiff. Daniel frowned, a hint of irritation creeping into his voice. Natalie White, what's wrong with you? You've been acting strange since yesterday. I lifted my gaze, locking eyes with him. Slowly, deliberately, I asked, Daniel Wilson, how many points do you want me to score? He froze, clearly not expecting such a question. His eyes flicked nervously toward Mia, betraying his panic. But Mia reacted fast. She forced a laugh, her voice syrupy sweet. Natalie, what are you saying? Of course we want you to score as high as possible. Didn't we promise we'd all go to Stanford together? As she spoke, her fingers dug sharply into my arm. A silent warning not to say anything more. I shook her hand off, my gaze never leaving Daniel's face. I'll ask again. How many points do you want me to score? The crowd around us began to hush, curiosity sparking in every pair of eyes. Daniel's face flushed crimson. With everyone watching, he had no choice but to stammer out, of course the higher, the better. Is that so? A cold laugh slipped from my lips. Funny. Because I heard that only if I fail will you finally be free to choose the school you actually want. Isn't that right? My words struck like thunder, rippling through the onlookers. Gasps filled the air. Daniel's face drained of color in an instant. Mia, on the verge of panic, nearly leapt forward. Natalie, you're insane. What nonsense are you spouting? We would never think that way, that way. Oh, nonsense? I turned my gaze on her, my voice like ice. Then do you dare swear to the heavens? Swear that you've never once thought of harming me. Swear that the milk you gave me last night had nothing added to it. Mia's body jolted violently, her pupils shrinking to pinpoints. Her lips trembled, but not a single word came out. The whispers around us swelled into a roar. Oh my God, is that true? Did Mia Carter really drug Natalie White? No way, weren't they best friends? You never know, people wear masks. Who can tell what's in someone's heart? Sensing the situation spiraling out of control, Daniel grabbed my arm and hissed under his breath, Natalie White, have you lost your mind? The exam starts any minute. Are you really going to ruin everyone's focus right now? Ruin everyone's focus? I laughed so hard tears pricked my eyes. Compared to what you two did to me, this little scene is nothing. Daniel Wilson was struck dumb, unable to muster a single word. Just then, the proctors began urging students to enter the exam hall. Mia Carter seized the opportunity like a drowning woman clutching a rope. She grabbed Daniel's arm and stammered, come on, hurry, we'll be late. Daniel shot me a venomous glare, wrenched his arm free of my grasp, and stormed off with her. Watching their panicked retreat, the knot of rage in my chest finally loose and just a little. But this was only the beginning. I steadied my breath, composed myself, and stepped into the exam room. The first subject, Chinese. When the test paper landed on my desk, I scanned it quickly. Every single question was exactly as I remembered. For me, this was child's play. But I didn't put pen to paper immediately. Instead, I closed my eyes and recalled Daniel Wilson's score from my previous life. 118, not high, not low, somewhere in the middle. To hit that score precisely would require surgical control, knowing exactly which points were guaranteed, and which could be accidentally lost. Reading comprehension. Which details must be nailed down, which ones could be vaguely brushed aside. Classical poetry, which interpretation was mainstream, which was too eccentric. And most importantly, the essay. Last time, sluggish from the drugged milk, I fumbled through my essay and barely scraped 45 points. This time, I would write a near-perfect piece, polished, elegant, worthy of admiration. But not flawless. A flawless essay would mean full marks, and that wasn't my goal. Instead, I would leave a few subtle cracks. An obscure allusion here, a risky structural flourish there, just enough to give the graders something to deduct. This wasn't merely an exam. It was a performance. Every misplaced comma, every mistake was calculated, precise. The clock ticked on. My pen flew across the paper, my mind cold and sharp as a blade. And when I wrote the last word and capped my pen, the final bell rang. Perfect timing. Outside, the sun was blinding. Mia Carter and Daniel Wilson were already waiting. Both of them looked pale and settled. The morning confrontation had shaken them, rattled their focus. The moment I stepped out, Mia plastered a strained smile on her face. Natalie, how did it go? I ignored her and walked straight past. Daniel moved to block my path, his eyes dark with unease. Natalie White about this morning wasn't it just a misunderstanding? Misunderstanding? I looked at him and almost laughed. The irony was too rich. Daniel Wilson, we've known each other for over a decade. Do you really think I'd accuse you without cause? His lips parted, but no words came. Of course not. He knew me too well. That was precisely why he dared to hurt me so recklessly, because he knew I was soft-hearted. That even if betrayed, I would swallow the pain in silence. But he made one fatal mistake. People change. Especially those who have already died once. In the days that followed, my performance reached its peak. Math in my past life. Daniel scored 135. His strength was the sciences, math was his weaker spot. So I left the last sub-question of the final problem blank, and deliberately picked a seductive but wrong answer on a multiple choice. Every misstep seamless, invisible. English. He'd scored 142. So I planted a few subtle errors in the closed test and reading comprehension. As for the sciences, his stronghold, my battlefield. In my last life, Daniel scored 285, an exceptional mark. But I was a competition-level prodigy. For me, the sciences were as natural as breathing. To match his score, I had to do the unthinkable: discard my pride. Physics, I forgot a crucial step, making the answer look like a careless miscalculation. Chemistry, I overlooked an essential reaction condition. Biology, I danced perfectly around every scoring point in a genetics question, leaving the page neat but empty. Every exam ended the same way, with me walking out calm, refreshed, even smiling lightly. And every time I saw their faces grow darker. Because my state was far too good. Not like someone who'd been drugged. Not like someone who had just fallen out with her closest friends. Their unease deepened into dread. For the first time, they began to wonder, had their plan gone wrong? On the last afternoon, as the final exam ended, rain began to fall. Students poured out of the gates like freed birds, shrieking with joy, tearing their books to pieces and tossing them into the sky. But the three of us stood in silence, rain soaking our hair and clothes, the air thick with tension. Finally, it was Mia Carter who cracked first. She stepped toward me, her voice trembling. Natalie, the exams are over. No matter what happened before, can we just let it go? We're still best friends, right? I looked at her rain-soaked face, the same face that had once felt so familiar and dear to me. Now, it was etched with guilt and fear. Suddenly, I felt it was all meaningless. Arguing with someone like her would only lower myself. I didn't answer. I only said faintly, I'm tired. I want to go home. Then I turned and walked away, leaving her and Daniel Wilson standing there, staring at each other in awkward silence. After the exams, two things mattered most: checking our scores and filling in our university applications. I locked myself in my room, refusing to see anyone. My parents thought I was upset because I hadn't done well, and every day they tried to comfort me with different words. It's okay, Natalie. It's just one exam. It doesn't decide your whole life. Exactly. Worst case, you can repeat a year and try again. Hearing them, my heart was a tangled mess. In my previous life, I had said the exact same things trying to ease my disappointment. And I had let them down. But this time, I won't. I pulled out the sheets of paper I had prepared in advance. On them were two sets of answers. One was identical to what I had turned in my official answers. The estimated total, 680 points. Exactly the same score Daniel Wilson had gotten in my last life. The other set, though, was my real ability laid bare. Every problem solved with perfect logic, every answer flawless. The total, 735 points. May score high enough to dominate the entire province without question, the top scorer. I carefully tucked away the paper with the 735. Then, holding only the 680 score sheet, I stepped out of my room. In the living room, my parents were there along with Daniel Wilson's parents, and Mia Carter's parents too. Apparently, the three families had arranged to come cheer me up together. The moment I appeared, all conversation stopped. every gaze turned toward me. Daniel Wilson's mother, the same woman who, in my last life, had taken every chance to flaunt her son's brilliance in front of my mom, was the first to speak. "Oh, Natalie's finally out. Well? How did you do? What's your estimated score?" Her tone carried a thinly veiled glee. Before I could say a word, Mia snatched the paper from my hand and read it aloud. Chinese, 118. Math, 135. English, 142. Science, 285 total, 680 points. She finished with an exaggerated gasp, covering her mouth. "Oh my God, Natalie, how could it be so low? That's way worse than your mock exams." Her acting, as always, was painfully overdone. Daniel Wilson's mother, however, could no longer hide the triumphant smile spreading across her face. Well, 680, huh? With that score, I'm afraid Stanford might be a little out of reach." As she spoke, she shot Daniel a proud look. Our Daniel estimated exactly 682. Isn't that a coincidence? Daniel stood beside her, head lowered, trying to wear the look of someone good but modest. My parents' expressions darkened instantly. My mom forced a stiff smile. 680 is still good. She should be able to get into a decent Harvard program. That's not the same thing at all. Daniel Wilson's mother immediately cut her off. Stanford is the very best university. Daniel has dreamed of getting in since he was a child. Natalie seemed smart enough, but when it really mattered, she just couldn't keep up. Could she? Every word of hers was sharp, deliberate, stabbing straight into my parents' hearts. In my previous life, it had been just like this. She had humiliated my family over and over with this exact tone, flaunting her son's success. And my parents had endured it in silence. But this time, I won't let them suffer that. I walked over to her, meeting her gaze calmly. "Auntie, are you so sure that 680 guarantees admission to Stanford?" She blinked, momentarily thrown off, then straightened her back with confidence. "Of course, we've already checked. Last year's cutoff in our province was 678. Even if it rises, it won't be by much. With 680, Daniel is safe." "Is that so?" I gave her a faint smile. "But Auntie, have you considered this? If two applicants both score 680, and Stanford only has one spot left for our province, who do you think they'll choose?" Her expression froze. She wasn't stupid, she instantly understood what I meant. With identical scores, admissions always compared subject by subject, math, Chinese, science. Whoever scored higher in a single subject would win. And math had always been Daniel's weakness. While I, on the other hand, had once won gold in the National Mathematics Olympiad. Even if I deliberately made mistakes on the exam, my mathematical thinking and precision were leagues beyond his. If it came down to subject scores, he would lose. Daniel seemed to realize it too. His face drained of all color. Mia Carter panicked, stammering, "No, it can't be such a coincidence. How could it just happen to be the very last spot?" Yes, I looked straight at her, my smile laced with meaning. How could it be such a coincidence? The living room fell into a dead silence. Daniel Wilson's mother's face went pale, then green, then white again. She could no longer utter a single word of pride. My parents exchanged a glance, and I saw hope flicker back into their eyes. They still didn't understand why I had deliberately scored so low, but they chose to believe in me unconditionally. The so-called family meeting after the exam results ended in an awkward, suffocating atmosphere. No one was pleased. After sending them off, my parents immediately pulled me into my room. "Natalie, tell us the truth," my mom pressed. "What's really going on in your mind?" I looked into their worried eyes and finally dropped the act. "Dad, Mom, do you trust me?" They nodded without hesitation. This time I did it on purpose. I laid out my plan in full. I told them about Mia Carter and Daniel Wilson's betrayal. About everything. As for the rebirth part, I softened the truth. I simply said I had a nightmare so vivid it felt real. After listening, my father slammed the table and shot to his feet, furious. Unbelievable, those two little brats. I'm going to make them pay right now. Dad. I grabbed his arm. If you confront them now, they'll never admit it. And besides, we don't have proof. My mother had calmed down too. She clasped my hand tightly, eyes glistening with tears. Natalie. You've suffered too much. It's our fault we failed to protect you. I shook my head. No, Mom. None of this is your fault. What matters now isn't the past. It's making sure they pay the price they deserve. My gaze sharpened, filled with resolve. It's time to fill in my college applications. I opened my laptop and logged into the system. For the early admissions section, I left everything blank. For the regular first choice undergraduate applications, I filled in only one school, Houghton University. And I checked the box to accept any major they assigned. With that done, I hit submit. In my previous life, I gave up better options just to follow Daniel Wilson to Beijing. All for the sake of Stanford. This time, I was choosing for myself. Shanghai, the dazzling city of lights, would be the beginning of my new life. As for Stanford, I'd leave that as nothing more than Daniel Wilson's unreachable dream. The days of waiting for the official results dragged on endlessly. For me, however, they were a kind of quiet pleasure. I savored watching Mia Carter and Daniel Wilson transform, first clinging to false hope, then growing restless, and finally unraveling in panic. They came to me almost every day. At first, it was fake apologies, trying to patch things up. Natalie, we know we were wrong. Please, can't you forgive us? We didn't mean to deceive you. We just wanted to be together too much. I ignored them all. Eventually, their masks slipped. Natalie White, what do you want from us? Do you really have to make things this ugly? You think this way you can destroy us? Let me tell you, even if I can't get into Stanford, I'll never let you have peace. One day, in a heated argument, Daniel Wilson lost control and shoved me hard. I fell backward, my forehead slamming against the corner of the table. Blood trickled down. Just then, my parents came home. The sight shocked them, and they called the police immediately. Daniel Wilson was taken to the station, where he was harshly reprimanded after giving his statement. Word spread quickly through the entire neighborhood. Everyone now knew that Daniel Wilson, the so-called top student, was also violent. His family's reputation was ruined overnight. And me? I became the object of sympathy. Poor Natalie White, what terrible friends she had. Exactly. What a shame, to be so blind. I enjoyed the peace. I spent my days at home reading, listening to music, and planning out my future life in college. Occasionally, I would accidentally drop by my homeroom teacher Chris Anderson's office. He had always believed in me, always held high expectations. This time, seeing me underperform, he was more worried than I was. Natalie White, what happened? With your ability, this shouldn't have happened. I lowered my head, eyes brimming with tears. Mr. Anderson, I'm sorry. I've let you down. Don't say that. He sighed. Were you just under too much pressure? I didn't answer directly. Instead, I pulled a stack of papers from my bag and handed them to him. Sir, these were my exam scratch papers. I don't know why, but during the test, my mind went blank. I wrote down wrong answers for so many questions I clearly knew how to do. What I handed him was, in truth, my carefully prepared perfect exam script, 735 points worth of flawless solutions. Mr. Anderson flipped through page after page. His expression shifted from puzzlement, to shock, to regret, and finally to outright fury. This is your real level. He slammed the desk with excitement. These solutions are even more elegant than the standard answers. If you'd written this in the exam, forget Stanford, you would have been provincial top scorer without question. He looked at me with a mix of heartbreak and disbelief. Natalie, how could you be so foolish? I let a few well-timed tears slip, choking out, I don't know, maybe I was just too nervous. Seeing my pitiful act, Mr. Chris Anderson didn't press further. He could only sigh deeply and hand back a stack of papers. Forget it. What's done is done. No use talking about it. Take care of yourself, calm your mind, and when the scores come out, we'll figure out your college applications. I nodded, tucked the papers under my arm, and left his office. Of course, I knew Mr. Anderson was a responsible teacher. There was no way he'd just ignore this miraculous set of scratch papers. Sure enough, the next day, I heard he had taken them to the principal. I studied the papers for hours and came to a conclusion. I must have suffered some sort of stress-induced memory impairment before the exam, causing cognitive errors under pressure. It sounded almost mystical, but it was the most reasonable explanation I could think of. It explained why I had failed the test, while also laying the groundwork for my future comeback. And Mia Carter and Daniel Wilson, they had no idea. They were still obsessed with that 680 points, nervously praying that the Stanford cutoff wouldn't rise this year, praying that my single subject scores wouldn't surpass Daniel Wilson's. Watching them perform like clowns, I could only laugh. They'd lost from the very beginning. Lost utterly. The day the results came out was brilliantly sunny. My parents were glued to the computer first thing in the morning, fingers trembling as they refreshed the results page. And Daniel Wilson, Mia Carter, and their parents, they too, had unexpectedly shown up at our house. Their excuse? To share in the joy. The truth. They wanted to confirm, firsthand, whether I was a threat. When the portal opened, my mom's hand shook as she typed in my exam ID and password. The page loaded. A line of bright red numbers appeared on the screen, total score, 680, exactly matching my predicted score down to the last point. Daniel Wilson's mother let out a long sigh of relief, her face lighting up. Mia Carter also let out a quiet breath, her eyes on me filled with smugness and contempt. Only Daniel Wilson's brow remained furrowed. He snatched the mouse and opened my subject scores: Chinese, 118 math, 135 English, 142 science, 285, every score perfectly aligned with what he had expected. How could this be such a coincidence? He muttered, disbelief etched across his face. Daniel Wilson's mother didn't care about coincidences. She just wanted to brag. Oh my, it really is 680. Daniel, hurry, check yours. Reluctantly, Daniel Wilson typed in his own exam number. The page refreshed. Total score, 680, perfect. His mother almost jumped out of her seat. Tears of excitement streaming down her face. Exactly the same. My son is amazing. Stanford, we're producing a Stanford student. She hugged Daniel Wilson tightly, crying and laughing at the same time. Mia Carter immediately rushed over. Admiration written all over her face. Daniel Wilson, you're amazing. I knew you could do it. The three of them were lost in their own celebration, already imagining the Stanford acceptance letter in their hands. My parents, however, looked uneasy. Even though they knew my plan, seeing the results firsthand still left them unsettled. I went over, gently patted their hands to reassure them, and then turned to the trio performing this family celebration, speaking calmly, congratulations. Daniel Wilson. My voice was quiet, but it hit them like a bucket of ice water, instantly freezing their excitement. Daniel Wilson's mother stiffened, her smile faltering as she glared at me. Natalie White, what do you mean? Daniel got into Stanford, aren't you happy for him? Happy? I smiled. Of course I'm happy. But I must remind you, when scores are tied, admissions are determined by individual subject rankings. I wonder how did Daniel do in math? The words struck another nerve. Daniel Wilson went pale, staring at the screen as if he could summon the answer from it. And Daniel Wilson's mother finally realized the gravity of the situation. Her smile vanished completely, replaced by sheer panic. What do you mean? Could your math really be higher than Daniel's? I didn't answer. Instead, I picked up the phone from the table and opened the provincial education exam website. The score distribution by point chart for this year had already been released. I scrolled to the 680-point section. Across the province, 13 students scored exactly 680. Stanford's quota for science students this year? 12. That meant one of these 13 would be cut. And who got cut depended entirely on the subject rankings: math, Chinese, science. At that moment, the entire living room fell silent, so still that you could hear a pin drop. All eyes were locked on my phone. No, impossible. Daniel Wilson's mother's lips quivered, shaking her head. Daniel's math isn't perfect, but it's not bad. Your math can't possibly be higher than his. Well, could it? How could someone who underperformed in the exam possibly score so high in mathematics, the subject that tests logic and reasoning the most? It made no sense. And yet the facts didn't lie. I clicked open the detailed rankings for each subject. Across the entire province, there were many students who scored 135 in math. But among the students who scored exactly 680 in total, there was only one person who achieved 135 in math. That person was me. Daniel Wilson, by contrast, had scored 132 in math. 3 points. Only 3 points. But those 3 points were a chasm between him and Stanford. An insurmountable barrier. It's over. Daniel Wilson collapsed onto the floor with a thud, eyes blank, muttering to himself. His mother seemed to have lost all her strength as well, staggering back to steps and leaning against the wall. Mia Carter stood frozen, her face pale as she stared at me in disbelief. You did this on purpose, Nally White. You planned this from the very beginning. Finally, it dawned on her. This was no coincidence. It was all me. Every precise, terrifyingly calculated strike executed flawlessly. I looked at her terrified face and smiled. Only realizing it now. Too little, too late, isn't it? You're insane, Mia Carter screamed. Why would you do this? We were best friends. Friends? My smile vanished, replaced with ice-cold eyes. When I was racked with despair, thinking I had failed, where were you? When I was ridiculed by everyone and chose to repeat a year, where were you? You and Daniel Wilson lived it up in Beijing with my parents' hard-earned money, calling to pretend to console me, watching me suffer for your amusement. Mia Carter, Daniel Wilson, is this what you call friendship? Each word I spoke cut through them like a knife. Daniel Wilson jumped to his feet, eyes bloodshot, pointing at Mia Carter. It's all your fault, your stupid idea, spiking her milk, hiding her notice, and now, my Stanford dream. It's all rue and because of you. Mia Carter froze at first, then erupted in anger. Daniel Wilson, what do you mean putting it all on me? Didn't you hide the notice too? If you weren't afraid of your mom, would you have agreed to my plan? And now you wash your hands clean. Daniel Wilson was at a loss for words, furious, and in a blind rage, he slapped Mia Carter across the face. Smack. The sharp sound made everyone in the room flinch. Mia Carter clutched her face, staring at him in disbelief. You hit me? You worthless. Daniel Wilson had completely lost control, like a wild beast. Because of you, I've ended up like this. I'll take you down with me. And just like that, the two of them began fighting in my living room. Hair flew. Clothes tore, nails scratched. The scene was absolute chaos. Daniel Wilson's mother screamed, rushing to separate them, only to be shoved aside by her son, falling to the floor. My parents watched in shock, wanting to intervene but afraid of getting caught in the crossfire. And me? I stood coldly to the side, like an outsider, enjoying the spectacle I had orchestrated. Truly spectacular. In the previous life, they loved each other so passionately that they didn't hesitate to sacrifice me for their romance. And now, over a mere distant dream of a college, they were at each other's throats. So that's what their love was worth. The commotion ended only when the police arrived. Neighbors, hearing the chaos, had called the authorities, thinking something terrible had happened. When the police arrived, they found my living room in shambles, with two near college-aged kids tangled in a fight. Hair disheveled, clothes torn. They were utterly baffled. After hearing the full story, the officers looked at Daniel Wilson and Mia Carter with contempt. Hurting your best friend for selfish gain, and to this degree, where did your education even go? For assault and disturbing the peace, you two will be coming with us to the station. Daniel Wilson and Mia Carter, like defeated roosters, hung their heads as the police led them away. Daniel Wilson's mother wailed and chased the police car for a long distance. Finally, the world was quiet. My parents looked at me, their eyes filled with worry and relief. Now they thank God you're safe. My mother hugged me, voice trembling. I hugged her back softly. Mom, it's all over now. Yes, it was all over. The grudges from my previous life felt half avenged in this moment. But it wasn't enough. I had only taken away their chance at Stanford. Even with their 680 points, they could still attend a very good school, like Harvard. That was not the result I wanted. I wanted them utterly ruined, with nothing left. Daniel Wilson and Mia Carter were administratively detained for 3 days for fighting at the police station. The story became the biggest news in our small county. Everyone knew that the two top students from County No. 1 high school, once envied for their brilliance, were now revealed to have appalling character. All their former prestige shattered overnight, replaced by ridicule and scorn. Meanwhile, another story quietly started circulating among the teachers at school. It was about me, Natalie White, and my miraculous draft paper capable of scoring 735 points. After confirming that Daniel Wilson had been rejected by Stanford due to his lower subject scores, my homeroom teacher, Chris Anderson, became even more preoccupied with my so-called underperformance in the exam. He took my draft paper to the city's education bureau, hoping to request a review of my exam results. Everyone knew that reviewing Gaokao scores almost never changed the outcome. Yet Chris Anderson's persistence only cemented my genius under duress image even further. People began to see me as a tragic prodigy, someone who had lost the top spot due to an unfortunate mishap. And this sense of tragedy would make my eventual reveal all the more dramatic. When the admission results were released, our home was once again crowded. But this time, it wasn't Daniel Wilson or Mia Carter, it was reporters from major media outlets. Stanford University's admissions office had personally called our home. The call came from the admissions director himself, who spoke with sincerity and regret. "Hello, Natalie White. This is Director Zhao from the Stanford University admissions office. We have been briefed on your situation by your school. We deeply sympathize with what you've gone through. After careful consideration by our admissions committee, we believe you are an exceptionally promising student. Although your Gaokao score does not meet our standard admission line, we are willing to make an exception and initiate our special admission process. We hope you will reconsider joining Stanford University. You may choose any major you wish." If this had happened in my previous life, I would have cried tears of joy on the spot. But now, I only felt a sense of irony. "Special admission?" I smiled, speaking both to the phone and the journalists raising their cameras around me. "Thank you for your kind offer, Director Zhao. But I'm afraid I must decline. As of yesterday, I have already received my admission letter from Fudan University." As I spoke, I retrieved the new, gold-embossed letter. Its fresh ink still fragrant, and held it high for all the reporters to see. The living room erupted into chaos. Camera flashes went off like fireworks. "What? Fudan University? Didn't she apply to Stanford? How did she get a Fudan acceptance? Oh my God, what's going on here?" Director Zhao, on the other end of the line, was stunned. He clearly hadn't expected this outcome. "Fudan? Natalie, what, you only applied to Stanford? Who told you I only applied to Stanford?" I countered. "Filling out applications is my personal choice. I'm not obliged to report it to anyone, am I?" Director Zhao was left speechless. Of course. Choosing a school is a student's right. They had assumed that as a prospective Stanford student, I would only go to Stanford. They never expected that I had already prepared a backup plan. I looked at the journalists, all frozen in shock, and continued. "Ladies and gentlemen, I know many of you came today to report a story about a tragic genius who missed Stanford. But let me clarify, I, Natalie White, am not a tragic genius. I am just a normal student. The Gaokao is an exam. Important, perhaps, but it does not determine my life. If you're gold, you shine wherever you are. Stanford is excellent, but so is Fuden. I chose Fuden not because I couldn't get into Stanford, but because I prefer the city of Shanghai. As for my score, why it was 680? I paused, sweeping my gaze across everyone present, before finally resting it on my homeroom teacher, Chris Anderson, standing pale in the corner. I think my homeroom teacher, Chris Anderson, can explain this to everyone. All eyes immediately turned to him. Chris Anderson was flustered by the sudden turn of events, instinctively glancing at me, confusion written all over his face. I gave him a reassuring smile. I knew what he was about to say could impact his professional reputation. But to make my revenge flawless, it had to be done. Chris Anderson took a deep breath. Under the dual pressure of local media and the top university admissions office, he chose to reveal the truth. He presented a copy of my 735-point draft paper and, voice slightly trembling, recounted the story of my stress-induced memory disorder again. The story, broadcast through the reporters' cameras and articles, quickly spread nationwide. Online, hashtags like Nally White's legendary twist, don't guess the genius's mind, and a brag you call underperforming instantly trended on Weibo. Overnight, Nally White transformed from a tragic genius into a mysterious prodigy. My story captured the fascination of countless netizens. Some admired my intelligence, how I could so precisely control my exam performance. Some admired my poise, how I could shrug off a special admission from Stanford. And many began to dig into the reasons behind my underperformance. Soon, someone dug up information on Daniel Wilson and Mia Carter, the two friends whose names had been inseparably linked with mine. News of their detention was also unearthed by the ever-watchful netizens. And just like that, an even more sensational version of the story began circulating online. Headlines like "Best Friends Poison Genius for Love" and "Real Life Beware of Friends" warning spread like wildfire. This version, with its twists, rich details, and dramatic love and betrayal narrative, was far more entertaining than my actual experience. Though much of it was fan speculation and embellishment, the core of betrayal and harm was undeniably real. Public opinion erupted. Daniel Wilson and Mia Carter became the targets of universal scorn. Their personal information, home addresses, and even their parents' workplaces were exposed online. They were bombarded with countless harassment calls and abusive messages every day. They dared not step outside, lest they be pointed at, mocked, or pelted with eggs and vegetables. Their high school, County No. 1 High, quickly distanced itself from them, recording severe disciplinary notes in their files and reporting them to the Provincial Education Examination Office. This effectively stamped their integrity with a permanent blemish. Even with 680 points on the Gaokao, it would now be nearly impossible for any top university to admit them. Their futures were, in that moment, sentenced to ruin. I saw all this unfold while riding the train to Shanghai. My phone was flooded with news and discussions about them. Some said they deserved it. Some thought they were too young to endure such online harassment. I watched quietly, completely unfazed. When an avalanche falls, no snowflake is innocent. When they decided to destroy my life, they should have known that a day like this would come. Then my phone rang. It was an unknown number. I hesitated, but answered. A hoarse, venomous voice hissed on the other end. "Natalie White, are you satisfied now?" It was Mia Carter. I said nothing. She raged like a madwoman, screaming into the phone. "You've ruined us all, you cold-hearted, viperous woman. I was blind to call you my best friend. Do you think going to Fuden University means you're safe? I swear, I'll haunt you even in death. I curse you. May you never find happiness. May you be betrayed and abandoned to live alone until the end of your days." I listened calmly as she vented until she finally ran out of breath and couldn't speak. Then I spoke, slowly and deliberately, with only one sentence. Mia Carter, everything you're experiencing now, I've already lived through it in my previous life. I hung up immediately and blocked her number. Outside the train window, the scenery blurred past. The gray, painful, hopeless past was left far behind, swallowed by the speed of the train. Ahead of me were a brand new city, a brand new university, and a brand new life. As for Mia Carter and Daniel Wilson, I no longer cared about their fate. I heard Daniel Wilson, unable to cope with the blow, had a mental breakdown and was admitted to a psychiatric hospital. His mother went white-haired overnight. Mia Carter, after this ordeal, was rejected by every university and had no choice but to attend a little-known vocational school. Her parents, unable to endure the scrutiny and gossip, sold their home and left our small town. Their once invincible love had become a joke. They had been willing to destroy me for the sake of being together, yet in the end, they had only thrown themselves into an abyss with no return. Perhaps, this was the most fitting punishment. College life was even more extraordinary than I had imagined. Fewton's academic atmosphere was free and intellectually stimulating. Around me were brilliant, fascinating minds from all over the country. I joined the debate team, sharpening my logic and public speaking in verbal duels. I volunteered with student organizations, discovering a sense of purpose while helping others. I pursued a double degree in economics, gaining a deeper understanding of how the world operates. I was no longer the bookish student who only buried herself in studies. I became outgoing, confident, and radiant. In my sophomore year, I represented Fewton in a national business case competition. On the competition floor, I faced a worthy opponent, a student from Stanford named Michael Evans. Like me, he was the core of his team, the center of attention. We sparred with words and strategies, from the preliminaries all the way to the finals. In the end, my team won by a narrow margin. After the award ceremony, he approached me. "Natalie White, congratulations," he said, extending his hand, a look of admiration on his face. "Your performance was brilliant." I shook his hand and sincerely replied, "You were amazing too. Can I add you on WeChat?" he asked, scratching his head sheepishly. "I'd really like to communicate more with you." I looked into his clear, bright eyes and the faint blush at his ears and smiled. Of course. Meeting Michael Evans was like a fresh breeze blowing into my once uneventful life. We had so much in common. Conversations ranging from business models to philosophical debates, from films and music to poetry and literature. We often chatted on WeChat late into the night, and frequently met at the library or attended lectures together. Being with him brought me an unprecedented sense of ease and joy. He was intelligent but never arrogant. Confident, yet never ostentatious. The way he looked at me was always filled with admiration and respect. I realized I liked him. But I didn't dare take that step easily. The betrayals of my past had left deep shadows in my heart. I was afraid that opening myself up again would only lead to more pain. Michael seemed to sense my hesitation. He didn't rush to confess, instead, he stayed quietly by my side, slowly melting the ice around my heart with his actions. He remembered my menstrual cycle and prepared ginger tea for me in advance. He accompanied me to my favorite spicy hot pot even if it left him sweating profusely. He brought hot food to me when I stayed up late for a project, quietly saying, "Don't overwork yourself." His kindness was subtle and thoughtful, like spring rain nourishing the earth. Finally, on my 20th birthday, he confessed. There were no flowers, no candles, just an ordinary evening along the planetary-lined path on Fewton's campus, where he took my hand. "Natalie White, I like you." His voice was slightly nervous, yet completely sincere. "I don't know what you've been through, but I can feel there's a wall in your heart. I don't want to force it down. I just want you to know, Noka, I'm willing to wait until the day you're ready to open your heart to me." The streetlight filtered through the plane trees, casting dappled shadows over him. His eyes shone brighter than the stars above. In that moment, the wall in my heart collapsed. I rose onto my tiptoes and kissed him. "Michael Evans, I will." We were together. When the news spread, it shocked both university social circles. No one expected that two rivals who had battled each other fiercely in competitions would end up together. Some joked that we were the perfect example of love and rivalry. Michael's friends soon learned of my story. Wow, sister-in-law, you really went all out back then. Manipulating your scores to knock someone off the Stanford line for revenge. And you even rejected a special admission offer from Stanford? That's insane. Every time I heard this, Michael would shield me and say, enough of this, it's in the past. Don't mention it again. Then he'd turn to me and smile gently. Don't listen to them. Just a bunch of gossipers. I knew he was protecting me. He didn't want my dark past to disrupt the life I was living now. Once, we walked together through Stanford's campus. Pausing at the famous second gate, he asked softly, Natalie White, do you ever regret not choosing to come here? I looked at the solemn gate and shook my head calmly. No, why not? Because I turned to him, meeting his gaze seriously. If I had come here, I might never have met you. He paused, then smiled. He pulled me into a tight embrace, resting his chin on my head, and whispered, Natalie White, thank you. Thank you for coming into my life. After college, Michael and I both received full scholarships from top foreign universities. He went to Harvard, I went to MIT. From a long-distance relationship within the same country, we moved to an international one. But distance never weakened our bond. We video called daily, sharing our lives and studies. During holidays, we flew halfway across the globe just to see each other. People said long-distance relationships never worked. Yet we made ours thrive better than anyone else's. Because we believed that as long as our hearts were together, striving in the same direction, no obstacle could separate us. 2 years later, we both completed our master's degrees. He gave up a high-paying job on Wall Street to return with me to China. In Shanghai, we founded our own company. The journey was grueling. We endured countless all-nighters, endless arguments, and numerous setbacks. Yet we never considered giving up. Because we had each other. The year the company became stable, we got married. The wedding was simple, attended only by close family and best friends. No lavish displays, no complicated ceremonies, yet every person there could feel the depth of our love. My parents looked at Michael, standing tall and handsome by my side, tears in their eyes. They held his hands, repeatedly saying, Michael, Natalie is in your hands now. Take care of her. Michael nodded solemnly, Mom, Dad, don't worry. I will love her and protect her for the rest of my life. I stood behind them, watching this tender scene, and couldn't help but recall my previous life. Back then, I craved love, craved recognition. I treated Mia Carter as my only confidant and Daniel Wilson as my entire world. I thought that if I gave them my all, they would return it. But in the end, I was left shattered. In this life, I no longer placed my hopes on anyone. I studied hard, worked hard, and pushed myself to become stronger, better, more capable. I thought my life would be a lonely journey of revenge. But I never expected that, on my way to the top, I would meet someone willing to walk with me and enjoy the view. He showed me that true love isn't about possession or demands, it's about enabling, respecting, and being equals, evenly matched in strength and spirit. Married life was peaceful and happy. We went to work together, left work together. We cooked together, watched movies together. We planned the company's future, and also dreamed about our own future. On weekends, we visited art galleries and attended concerts. Or, on a sunny afternoon, we do nothing at all, just lounge lazily on the sofa, reading a book and sipping tea. Life was calm and the world felt safe. I had almost forgotten the past that had once made me ache with pain. Until one day, I received an unexpected call. It was my high school homeroom teacher, Chris Anderson. He told me that Mia Carter had been released from prison. The moment I heard the name Mia Carter, I felt a flash of disorientation. The floodgates of memory opened instantly. The carefully buried images of betrayal, hurt, and revenge surged back into my mind. What happened to her? I tried to keep my voice calm. Chris Anderson sighed on the other end. A few years ago. She was sentenced to 5 years for fraud. Counting the time, she's being released around now. Fraud? I was surprised. I had thought someone as proud and ambitious as her, even at rock bottom, wouldn't stoop to crime. Yes, he said, regret heavy in his voice. After graduating from college, she couldn't find a good job. She got involved with some shady people and ran telecom scams. Eventually, someone reported her. I fell silent. I didn't know what to say. Should I think it was her own fault or sigh at the unpredictability of life? Chris, why are you telling me this? He hesitated, then said. After she got out, the first person she contacted was me. She asked about you, said she wanted to meet you in person, to apologize. Apologize? I sneered. No need. There's nothing left for me to say to her. Natalie, I know you're still angry. But she's already paid a heavy price for what she did back then. Now she has nothing, no home, no support. I thought she was truly pitiable. So you mean you want me to show mercy, take her in, forgive her? I cut him off, my voice laced with sarcasm. Chris Anderson, did you forget how she treated me back then? I haven't forgotten. Of course I haven't forgotten, he hurriedly replied. I just think people should look forward. How long can grudges go on? How long can grudges go on? I repeated, laughing bitterly. Chris, you can say that so easily. You weren't the one who got hurt. If it had been your daughter whose life was ruined, would you be so magnanimous? He fell silent. I didn't want to waste more words. I hung up. I thought it was over. But a few days later, I saw Mia Carter outside my company. She stood across the street, wearing a faded, worn coat. Her hair was yellowed, her face gaunt. The girl I remembered always in pretty dresses, smiling radiantly, was gone. She saw me too. In her eyes flashed a mix of surprise, shame, regret, and stubbornness. Hesitating, she started walking toward me. I instinctively stepped back, every nerve on high alert. I didn't know what she wanted. Was she here to apologize, as Chris Anderson said, or had she come to hurt me again? At that moment, the sleek black car pulled up smoothly in front of me. Michael Evans stepped out. His brow twitched slightly as he noticed Mia Carter. Then he strode quickly to my side, draped his suit jacket over me, shielding me completely. He didn't glance at Mia Carter. He looked down at me gently. What's wrong? You look upset. I shook my head, whispering, nothing. Let's go. All right. He put his arm around my shoulders and turned to leave. Natalie White, wait. Mia Carter suddenly rushed forward, blocking our path. Her emotions were raw, unstable. Natalie White, I beg you. Please give me one chance, okay? I was wrong, I really know I was wrong. And then, with a thud, she dropped to her knees. Forgive me, I'm kowtowing to you. Mia Carter's kneel drew the attention of everyone around. I stood frozen, watching her weep uncontrollably at my feet, and I felt nothing, no sympathy, only unrelenting disgust. She had always been like this. Prone to extreme displays. Manipulating others' emotions to gain their pity and achieve her goals. In my previous life, she had used this same pitiful act to steal my trust and Daniel Wilson's love. Now she was trying the same trick again. But I was no longer the naive fool I had once been. Michael Evans stood behind me, shielding me. His gaze icy as it swept over Mia Carter. Ma'am, please stand. If you have something to say, speak properly. Mia Carter, however, ignored him, continuing to kneel and sob so hard that she was gasping for breath. Natalie White, look at me. I served 5 years in prison. I have nothing now. My parents don't want me, I don't even have a place to live. I beg you, for the sake of our past, please help me. I'll do anything, I'll work in your house. Serve tea, do anything you want. Her words were designed to evoke maximum pity. The bystanders, unaware of the true story, began whispering. She's kneeling, and she still doesn't seem to care. Look at them, they used to be friends, what kind of hatred must there be for this to happen? I listened, amused. Hatred. They had no idea what I had endured. I took a deep breath, gently moving my Cleven's arm off me, and stepped toward Mia Carter. I looked down at her, and my words were precise and cold. Mia Carter, stop putting on that act. It's disgusting to watch. Her cries stopped abruptly. She looked up at me, disbelief etched on her face. What did you say? I said you disgust me. I repeated it, my voice calm but cutting. Do you think kneeling here, crying pitifully, will make me soften? Do you think that because time has passed, I'll forget everything you did to me? Let me tell you, Mia Carter, it's impossible. The pain you caused me, I will never forget. Everything you're going through now is exactly what you deserve. As for any friendship between us, I sneered. From the moment you decided to hide my acceptance letter, all that was left between us was hatred. So don't bother me again. Next time, it won't be as simple as calling the police. I turned, took my Cleven's hand, and walked away without another glance. Behind me, Mia Carter's wails tore through the air. Natalie White. You can't do this to me, you can't. I didn't look back. I knew the cruelest thing I could do was let her live forever in regret and despair just like I had in my past life. After that day, Mia Carter never came near me again. I heard she got a job washing dishes at a small restaurant, living day to day on a meager wage. As for Daniel Wilson, he remained in the mental hospital, sometimes lucid, sometimes completely insane. When lucid, he wrote endlessly to Stanford, claiming he was the one who should have been admitted. When insane, he saw everyone as Mia Carter, beating and cursing them, blaming her for ruining his life. They had, in their own way, perfectly illustrated the meaning of reaping what you sow. Meanwhile, my Cleven's and I continued building our company, growing it into an industry leader, achieving our original dreams. We had a daughter, adorable, clever, kind, and a little mischievous, looking like me but with his temperament. I often wondered, without the chance to be reborn, where would I be now? Perhaps in some unknown small town, stuck in a job I hated, married to someone I didn't love, drifting through life. Or perhaps long gone, reduced to dust in that night of despair. Rebirth had given me a second chance. Revenge had given me the motivation to change my fate. But ultimately, it was love that led me out of the shadows and into the light. The unconditional love of my parents, the sincere love of friends, and my Cleven's love. Gentle, patient, and healing, restored me completely. On a sunlit weekend, I returned to my alma mater, County High School, with my daughter. The school was just as I remembered: red buildings, wide playgrounds, and the path lined with fragrant camphor trees. I held my daughter's hand, walking through the campus, telling her my story, how I once had my best friends here, my first innocent crushes, and how much sweat and effort I poured into chasing my dreams. She listened, her small face curious, and asked, "Mom, do you still hate them?" I smiled at her and shook my head. And no, I don't. It wasn't forgiveness. It was simply letting go. Because my life was already filled with too many beautiful things. My time belonged to the people I loved, and the things I loved to do, not wasted on those who didn't deserve it. The sun was setting, golden light spilling across the campus. I saw my Cleven's at the school gate, smiling and waving. I took my daughter's hand and ran toward him, my heart full. I knew my happiness was right there. And not far beyond, was home. My ruthless mafia husband secretly kept a mistress. That girl was a kindergarten teacher, pure on the surface, yet sly like a schemer who knew exactly how to play innocent. For Matthew Scott, a man who lived on the edge of a knife, she was the first taste of madness he couldn't resist. He thought he hid it well. But I saw at the 99 hotel booking notifications that popped up on his phone. In my last life, out of spite, I anonymously mailed Julia Reed's photo to Matthew Scott's sworn enemy. He didn't flare up. Instead, he calmly filed for divorce. When I refused, he raised the stakes. First, he pushed me into a pool of piranhas and watched as they tore into me. Still, I wouldn't let go. In the end, he hung my brother from a Ferris wheel and threatened me with a dead man's switch. "Zoe Morgan, if you don't sign those papers, I'll flip the switch." Whether your brother lives or dies is entirely up to you. For my brother's life, I signed in disgrace. But even so, he still let my brother die. When I opened my eyes again, I was back on the very day I discovered Julia Reed. This time, I didn't rage. I didn't fight. Instead, I secretly arranged an escape overseas, plotting to stage my own death. And when I truly died, Matthew Scott shattered. Adam Brooks arranged for my brother to leave for Switzerland immediately. I'll settle matters here as fast as I can. With everything in place, I had my lawyer draft the divorce papers. In my past life, I had only seen Julia Reed in a single photo on Matthew Scott's phone. Reborn, I wanted to see her with my own eyes. What kind of woman could make such a cold-blooded man show tenderness? So I went to the kindergarten where Julia Reed worked. She was crouched by the sandbox, speaking softly to a little girl as they built a castle together. The afternoon sun fell across her hair, making her glow with warmth. No wonder Matthew Scott fell for her. Careful! A boy on the swing lost his grip and was hurled into the air. Before I could even react, Julia Reed had already lunged forward, shielding him with her body. Rip! Her arm scraped hard against the rough ground, blood instantly welling from the cut. She only furrowed her brows, then turned to soothe the trembling boy. It's all right. Be brave, boys don't cry. I stepped in and helped her up. Let me take you to the hospital. Julia glanced at her bleeding arm, then gave a small nod. She didn't refuse. Instead, she whispered a soft thank you. I drove her to the nearest hospital. The doctor quickly treated her wound. Afterward, she thanked me again. Really, thank you so much today, miss. I don't even know your name yet. I only shook my head. I had no intention of telling her. Just then, her phone rang inside her pocket. One glance was enough for me to recognize the number. Matthew Scott. Julia's cheeks flushed as she hurried to answer. Matthew? I'm fine. Don't worry. It's just a little scrape, really. You don't need to come. I'll be back soon. I froze where I stood. The scene dragged me back to last winter. That night, I had a sudden gastric spasm, so painful I could barely stand. When I called Matthew Scott, the voice on the other end was cold and impatient. I'm busy. Stop bothering me with something so trivial. Then he hung up. I spent the night alone in a freezing hospital room, hooked to an IV until dawn. So he did know how to care. He just never cared about me. Snapping back from the memory, I saw Julia hang up, her face still glowing with sweet happiness. I couldn't stand another moment. I have something else to do. I'll be leaving. My voice was flat as I turned and walked out. But just as I reached the corner of the hallway, a deep, familiar voice cut through the air behind me. My foolish little girl, where are you hurt? From Matthew Scott's company to Julia Reed's kindergarten was at least a 30-minute drive. Yet the moment she scratched her arm, he had already rushed here. My lips curved into a bitter smile. In 10 years of marriage, he had never once treated me this way. I walked away without looking back, divorce papers clenched tightly in my hand. When I returned to the villa, I headed straight upstairs. But the butler, Tyler Bennett, blocked my path. Madam, you can't go in right now. My tone was ice. This is my room. Tyler looked torn, hesitating. Mr. Scott is occupied inside. And then, from within, came a stifled cry from a woman. I tightened my grip on the file, the cold sinking deeper into my chest. Through the crack in the door, I saw the scene clearly. Julia Reed sat before him, and Matthew Scott, the same man who had once crippled a subordinate for failing him, was now gently tending her wound with a cotton swab, his expression tender and focused. Does it still hurt? His voice was low, filled with heartache. I had never heard him speak to me like that. My sharp pain pierced through my heart. Silently, I turned away and handed the divorce papers to Tyler. When Matthew Scott is finished, tell him to sign these. Tyler Bennett took the file, hesitated, then knocked softly on the door. He placed the divorce papers on the desk. I thought Matthew Scott would at least question me. But he merely looked up, spared us a glance, and picked up his pen. With a single stroke, he signed his name at the very end. When I received the file back, my fingertips were ice cold. 10 years ago, I married Matthew Scott. Suspicious by nature, repulsed by intimacy, cold to the very core. He never loved me. But he didn't seem to love anyone else either. So foolishly, I believed that if I was obedient enough, quiet enough, one day he might treat me differently. On my dressing table lay a single keepsake, a jade pendant. The only gift he gave me on our wedding day. He had said, "This will keep you safe for a lifetime." Looking at it now, it was nothing more than an empty promise. I picked it up without hesitation, and with a flick of my wrist, tossed it into the trash. 10 years of delusion finally, it was over. During the first half of the divorce schooling off period, Matthew Scott never once came home. One evening, while buying sleeping pills at the pharmacy, I unexpectedly ran into Julia Reed. She wore a worn coat, her head bowed as she picked out medicine at the counter. When she spotted me, her eyes lit up, and she hurried over. Lowering her head shyly, she murmured, "Miss, thank you so much for the other day. I've been wanting to thank you in person. In my past life, Matthew Scott once said she was like a beam of light, able to brighten any darkness." At the time, I scoffed. Now, I could see it was true. "It was nothing," I replied. "Are you here for medicine?" We found a quiet corner to sit. Suddenly, her eyes reddened. "What's wrong?" I asked. She quickly wiped her eyes and whispered, "My stepfather, he gambled again. He owes a huge debt. They even came to the kindergarten looking for me today. Do you think my boyfriend, does he know about this?" A chill ran down my spine. Whatever sympathy I'd felt instantly turned to caution. "Don't be afraid. There's always a way to handle things. With how capable your boyfriend is, he'll definitely settle it for you. But if Matthew Scott found out, those loan sharks wouldn't live to see tomorrow. And once there were bodies, the police would inevitably get involved. If he drew too much attention, my plan to fake my death could be ruined. I couldn't risk it." Excusing myself, I went to the restroom and pulled out my phone, sending a message to my contact. "Plan B. Urgent." The reply came almost instantly, "Handled." Deleting the message, I studied my expression. In my last life, after my brother's death, Matthew Scott had me locked in a psychiatric ward. He told the world I'd gone insane from grief, and then openly flaunted his relationship with Julia Reed. I hated him. I hated Julia Reed. I tried to escape more than once, but each time I was dragged back, punished with longer confinements. "Zoe Morgan, no matter what happens, you must protect yourself. That's all your brother ever wanted." My brother's voice echoed in my mind. "Don't worry, brother. I know what I have to do." When I returned, Julia was already surrounded by several men with hostile faces. "Girl, your old man's dead is your problem now. Pay up today." The leader, Jason Miller, had a hideous scorpion tattoo curling up his neck. As he spoke, he grabbed Julia by the arm. She went pale, retreating in fear, which only seemed to enrage them further. "Still trying to run, looks like you need a real lesson." Before they could lay a hand on her, I seized the bottle of disinfectant on the table and hurled it at Jason Miller's face. "AGH. Get lost," I shouted. The corrosive liquid ate into his skin, and he screamed in agony. His men rushed to steady him. When he recovered enough to breathe, he glared at me with murder in his eyes. "You bitch, dare lay a hand on me? Grab her." His thugs lunged at once. I was no match for them. They twisted my arms and dragged me before Jason Miller. "You've got guts, but you're not walking away with that pretty face intact," he sneered. He pulled a knife from his belt and slashed at my cheek. Rip, hot blood ran down my skin, the pain searing. The pharmacy staff shrieked and scattered in terror. Jason shoved me aside, grinning viciously as he turned back to Julia Reed. Frozen in shock. Don't touch her." The image of my brother plummeting from the Ferris wheel flashed before my eyes. I could hardly feel my own wound anymore. Forcing myself up, I tried to reach Julia, only to be kicked hard in the stomach, sending me crashing to the ground. This one's got a fine body, Jason laughed. Boys, have your fun with her. Leave the little one for me. But just then the pharmacy door burst open with a deafening bang, everyone froze. At the entrance stood Matthew Scott, striding in step by step. His face was expressionless, but his eyes blazed with killing intent. He walked straight to Julia Reed, draped his suit jacket over her trembling shoulders, and murmured, "Don't be afraid. I'm here." Julia clung to his coat, shaking, while a wave of black-suited bodyguards stormed in and pinned Jason Miller's crew to the ground. "Take Miss Reed to the car," Matthew ordered. The guards escorted Julia out. Not once did he look back at me. I lay on the floor, blood burning down my cheek, staring up at him with desperate hope. But Matthew walked right past me and stopped before Jason Miller, who was held firmly down. "Why?" he asked coldly. "Did you go after her?" Matthew Scott's voice was like ice, sharp, merciless, utterly devoid of warmth. Jason Miller, clutching his corroded face, let his eyes flicker with malice before suddenly pointing at me. "Mr. Scott, it was her. This bitch was the one who sent us. She said if we scared that little kindergarten girl Julia Reed she'd pay us a fortune. But when we did the job, she complained we didn't hurt her enough and refused to pay. When we demanded our cut, she lost it and threw disinfectant on me." My eyes widened in shock. I struggled to my feet, desperate to speak. "That's not true. Matthew Scott, listen to me please, let me explain." At last, he turned his gaze on me. But in those eyes, there was nothing but open disgust, raw contempt. He gave a cold laugh, then flicked his hand toward his men. "No need. Pour both buckets of disinfectant on her." My blood turned to ice. I watched in horror as two bodyguards lifted the heavy containers without hesitation. The acrid liquid crashed down over me, seeping into every inch of my skin. The gash on my cheek burned as though pressed by a searing brand. My entire body screamed with blistering pain. "Ah!" The scream tore from my throat as I curled into myself, shuddering in agony. "Matthew Scott, take me to the hospital. I'm begging you." It was the last shred of strength I had left, spent on a plea. But he only looked down at me from above. Cold, unfeeling, as though watching a worthless insect triff. "Don't you like hiring thugs to collect debts?" he said softly, almost mocking. "Then I'll sell you off. Let you find out what it feels like to be treated as cargo. Let's see exactly how much you're worth." Pinned to the ground, Jason Miller's eyes lit up. He scrambled upright. His face contorted in eagerness. "Mr. Scott, does that mean I can buy her?" Matthew Scott pulled out his phone, expressionless, and opened a payment code. "Send me 1 cent. Jason blinked, then broke into a look of wild joy. He fumbled out his phone and scanned the code like a man being handed treasure. I stared at him, disbelief shredding what was left of me. He was still that cruel. That merciless. "No, you can't do this, Matthew Scott, I'm your wife." But Jason Miller was already grinning ear to ear, bowing and scraping. "Thank you, Mr. Scott, thank you." He and his men advanced on me with leering faces, drunk on their survival. "You bastard, Matthew Scott, you're nothing but a monster." But the tall figure at the doorway didn't pause. Without a backward glance, he vanished into the night. Jason Miller chuckled obscenely. "Well, boys, seems luck's on our side tonight." As his laughter rang out, a single tear slid from the corner of my eye. Pain devoured me whole. Yet in my mind, I saw another day 10 years ago, the afternoon of our marriage. He had stood outside the registry office in a black suit, face blanked, taking the household register from my brother's hands. That was the closest I had ever been to him. I believed time could change something. But it was nothing more than my delusion. By dawn, the guards finally came inside. "You can leave," one of them ordered. Jason Miller adjusted his clothes, disappointment flickering on his face. Before leaving, he spat on me. "Pathetic bitch. You're as stiff as a dead fish. No fun at all." When they were gone, a guard tossed a coat over me. "Madam, do you need a hospital?" yes. My face was slashed, my body soaked in corrosive chemicals, wounds burning everywhere. But I forced myself up, pulling the coat on with trembling hands. From my scattered bag, I fished out my phone. Adam Brooks, I whispered hoarsely. Activate the final plan. I want the names Zoe Morgan to vanish from this world. Understood, came the reply. Everything is in place, Miss Saubajta. Rest assured. I ended the call and threw the phone into a roadside trash bin. A black van rolled up in front of me. The door slid open, and a man in a white coat gave me a respectful nod. Miss Zoe, please get in. I climbed inside. The vehicle pulled away smoothly, heading toward a private clinic on the outskirts. Every doctor and nurse there belonged to Adam Brooks. They would create a flawless death report for me. Begin, I instructed the lead physician. He nodded, sliding a needle into my arm. The chill of the sedative spread through me, dragging my consciousness into darkness. Before I succumbed completely, I heard him on the phone with Tyler Bennett. Mr. Bennett, it's the clinic. The madam is in critical condition. Her chemical burns are extensive, complications severe. We're doing everything we can, but please prepare Mr. Scott for the worst. Matthew Scott was bent over urgent paperwork when the call came. Mr. Scott, it's your wife. She's in the hospital, she's dying. His hand froze on the pen. Which hospital? The moment the words left him, he slammed the phone down and stormed from the conference room. He drove like a man possessed, barreling into the hospital, shoving his way into the ER. A weary doctor emerged, pulling down his mask. I'm sorry, Mr. Scott. We tried everything. Multiple organ failure. Resuscitation failed. She's gone. The rest of his words blurred into nothing. Matthew Scott pushed past him, step by step, toward the closed door. Inside, on the white bed, a body lay still beneath a sheet of pure white. Beneath the white cloth lay me, face serene, skin drained of all color. Madam Brooks's people were thorough. He had found a double who resembled me 7/10, and with the aid of makeup, the illusion was flawless. Matthew Scott froze in place. Staring at that familiar face, his body began to tremble violently. Zoe Morgan? The figure on the bed gave no reply. Zoe Morgan. This time his voice carried command, sharp and urgent. But the woman who had always obeyed him did not open her eyes, no, a strangled cry or from his throat. He collapsed beside the bed, clutching the icy body in his arms. Wake up. I order you to wake up. Like a madman he shook me again and again, tears spilling uncontrollably. Around him, bodyguards and doctors stood stunned. Zoe Morgan, don't sleep. I was wrong. I shouldn't have treated you that way. Get up, hit me, curse me, I'm begging you. He buried his face in the hollow of my neck, weeping like an abandoned child, his sobs raw and gut-wrenching. Just then, Julia Reed rushed in. The moment her eyes fell on the scene, her face turned deathly pale. Matthew, Zoe Morgan's sister? What happened to her? Matthew Scott ignored her. Watching his anguish, Julia Reed suddenly collapsed to her knees with a thud. I'm sorry. Matthew, I'm so sorry. It was me, I'm the one who hurts Zoe Morgan. Matthew Scott slowly lifted his head, his bloodshot eyes boring into Julia. What did you say? Through tears, Julia confessed the truth. That day at the pharmacy, Zoe Morgan only got hurt because she was protecting me. That's why they beat her. Why they slashed her face. She threw the disinfectant at Jason Miller to shield me. Every word was a knife driving deeper into Matthew's chest. He remembered my despairing screams when the disinfectant burned my skin. Remembered my trembling hand reaching for him as I lay bleeding on the ground. Remembered selling me out to those scum for a single cent. Matthew Scott slowly released my corpse and rose to his feet, his gaze glacial as it fixed on Julia. Get out. Then he turned to the guards behind him. Find the men from that pharmacy. I want them alive. In an abandoned warehouse on the west side of town, Jason Miller and his lackeys were bound to pillars. Matthew Scott walked in, carrying 2 buckets of disinfectant. Mr. Scott, please, spare us. Jason Miller was already shaking, his voice cracking with terror. We were wrong, we shouldn't have lied. It was your eyes, so your look was too terrifying. We didn't dare tell the truth. Matthew Scott said nothing. He unscrewed a cap, stepped forward, and slowly poured an entire bucket of disinfectant over Jason's head. The warehouse filled with shrill, inhuman screams. Did she lie? Matthew's voice was low, almost a whisper addressed to Jason, or perhaps to himself. And no, not one word was a lie. We framed her, it was us, we deserved to die, Jason held in agony. Matthew's face betrayed no emotion. Leaving the men to his subordinates, he drove alone to the cemetery on the outskirts of town. He had chosen a spot with the finest view for my grave. On the tombstone only 6 words were carved: beloved wife Zoe Morgan. Beneath them, his own name, Matthew Scott. He knelt before the grave, gently caressing the photograph etched into the stone. In the picture, I was smiling softly, yet with a trace of distance. Zoe Morgan. I dealt with them all. But why won't you come back? I was wrong, I truly was. Please come back. If you do, I'll give you everything. My life is yours too. The first month after my death, Matthew Scott locked himself inside our bedroom. The very place he once despised, once refused even to enter, had become his only refuge. The last place he could feel close to me. He kept everything exactly as I'd left it. He sat on the bed, staring at our wedding photo on the nightstand. In it, I smiled shyly, while he wore no expression at all. Zoe Morgan, what do you want to eat today? I'll have Tyler Bennett make your favorite sweet and sour ribs, shall I? Why won't you answer me? Are you still angry with me? He spoke to the photo as if it were me. Tyler and the servants watched him grow more haggard by the day, his mind fraying. But none dared intervene. Once, a new maid, unaware of the unspoken rule, tried to throw away a peace charm I had left in the trash. Matthew caught her, shielding the bin as though it were treasure. No one touches this. These are her things, hers. After that, no one dared set foot in that room again. He scoured all my diaries, letters, even the browsing history on my computer. Only then did he discover that I liked tart films. That I loved sweets, but gave them up because he disliked sugar. That every year on my birthday, I bought myself a small cake, lit a candle alone, and made the same wish. May Matthew Scott love me a little more. He found the hospital records from the night I suffered acute stomach cramps and went alone to the ER. He found the social media post I wrote after he hung up on me. So it turns out when the heart turns cold, even the stomach stops hurting. He tracked down my brother's address in Switzerland. Then alone, he booked a ticket bound for Zurich. Brother, he had barely opened his mouth when a fist smashed hard into his face. Adam Brooks Thomas grabbed him by the collar, eyes burning with hatred. You don't deserve to call me brother. Matthew Scott, you bastard, give me back my sister. Matthew Scott didn't fight back. He simply let Adam's fists land, one blow after another. Blood trickled from the corner of his mouth, his figure growing more and more disheveled. At last, with a dull thud, he collapsed to his knees in the knee-deep snow. I'm sorry. I'm the one who killed Zoe Morgan. Hit me, curse me. Do whatever you want if it can ease your anger. Madame Brooks Thomas glared at him with a cold, bitter laugh. Hit you? Curse you? Will that bring my sister back? Matthew Scott, from the moment you caused Zoe Morgan's death, the only thing left between us is a blood feud. Nothing else. Get out of my sight. And don't you ever appear before me again. When I opened my eyes again, I was staring at a pure white ceiling. The faint scent of disinfectant lingered in the air. But for the first time, it didn't frighten me. You're awake. The voice beside me was calm and gentle. I turned my head and saw Adam Brooks. Welcome back, Miss Zoe. I tried to sit up, but my body was far too weak. Don't move. You've just had surgery. You need rest. Adam helped support me. Surgery? Instinctively, I touched my face. For safety reasons, we arranged reconstructive and minor adjustment surgery for you, he explained. From now on, you have a brand new identity. Zoe Morgan Nundo. From today, your name is Sue King. A week later, the mirror reflected a stranger's face. All traces of the past had been wiped away. Just then, the hospital room door burst open. A familiar figure rushed in. Zoe. My brother, breathless and travel-worn, stood in front of me. Tears blurred my vision in an instant. Zoe. He ran over and pulled me into his arms, holding me so tightly it almost hurt. Thank God you're alive. I thought I'd lost you forever. His voice broke. Tears dripping onto my neck. Brother, I'm all right now. It's all over. At last, in a foreign land, we were reunited. My brother stayed by my side in the hospital for an entire month. He told me everything that had happened after my death. That bastard actually had the nerve to come to me. He knelt in the snow for 3 whole days and nights, nearly froze to death. He kept saying he was wrong, begging me for forgiveness, begging me to tell you that he regretted it all. Adam's voice turned sharp with contempt. Pathetic. His regret, can it erase the pain you went through? I listened quietly, my heart unmoved. Matthew Scott's repentance meant nothing to me anymore. Brother, you did the right thing. Between us and him it was over long ago. After leaving the hospital, I began a new life as Sue King. I enrolled at a local university, majoring in art history. It was a dream I'd always had, but had been forced to abandon because of Matthew Scott's preferences. Now, finally, I could live for myself. At the university, I met my advisor, the man who would later become my husband, Luke Adams. He was a gentle, refined man, with gold-rimmed glasses and eyes that seemed to sparkle whenever he smiled. The youngest professor at the university, brilliant yet humble. Our first meeting was in his office. He noticed the note in my file about psychological trauma. But he never asked about it. He only said, warmly, welcome, Miss Sue King. The past is behind you, the future is what matters. Here, you can be anything you want to be. His kindness was like sunlight, melting the ice that had long encased my heart. We went from teacher and student to friends. Bit by bit. With patience and warmth, he helped heal wounds I thought would never close. During that time, I deliberately avoided all news from back home. But one day, by chance, I saw a headline online: the Scott Group had gone bankrupt. Matthew Scott had been arrested. The news photo showed him in handcuffs, being led into a police car. Once so arrogant, untouchable, a man who dominated both the business world and the underworld, now haggard, hollow-eyed, broken. I stared at the picture, but inside, I felt nothing. Closing the page, I returned calmly to editing my thesis. The past, grudges and hatred, all of it belonged to another life. On my 25th birthday, Luke Adams rented out an entire restaurant for me. In the glow of candlelight, he dropped to one knee and produced a ring. It was simple in design, yet under the light it glittered with dazzling brilliance. Sue King. He looked up at me, his eyes sincere, burning with emotion. I don't know what you went through in the past. I don't care. All I know is I want to be part of your future. I want to wake up every morning and see you beside me. I want to travel the world with you. Will you marry me? Tears welled up once again, but this time, they were tears of happiness. I nodded hard, smiling through the blur. Yes, I will. Eventually, Matthew Scott's case came to trial. Found guilty on multiple charges. He was sentenced to life in prison. Once a man who commanded both boardrooms and back alleys with equal power, he now sat behind bars, forgotten, abandoned. Not a single former friend or follower came to see him. Everyone around him treated him like a plague, quickly distancing themselves from him. Every day, apart from the mandatory labor, he spent all his time writing letters. Zoe Morgan, today marks the 100th day since you left. The food in prison is terrible, nothing like your sweet and sour pork. I keep wondering. If you were still here, would you come to see me? You wouldn't. You hated me too much. Zoe Morgan, I'm sorry. Zoe Morgan, I miss you. He wrote a thick stack of letters, each carefully sealed in an envelope with my name on it. But he knew, deep down, that these letters would never reach me. So every night, he would read them aloud to the cold, unyielding walls, as if somehow I could hear him. Then one day Julia Reed came to visit him in prison. "What are you doing here?" Matthew Scott didn't want to see her. "I came to tell you something," Julia Reed said quietly. "A while ago, I met someone who had just returned from Switzerland. She said she saw Miss Zoe Morgan's brother in a hospital there. And she also mentioned that he was taking care of a woman who had undergone plastic surgery." Matthew Scott's grip on the phone tight and abruptly. "What did you say?" "I'm only speculating." Julia Reed's voice trembled. "Miss Zoe Morgan's death has always been strange. Could it be she never actually died, she just left you this way?" With a crash, Matthew Scott slammed the phone against the glass. In the following days, using the last of his influence outside, he began investigating the truth behind my supposed death. Until one day, his men brought him news. "General Manager Scott, we traced Adam Brooks Thomas attending a wedding recently. The bride, her name is Sue King, the wife of a university professor. Though she had plastic surgery, her figure and demeanor are remarkably similar to the lady. Moreover, Adam Brooks Thomas addressed her as Zoe." The voice on the other end of the line was cautious, but Matthew Scott had already lost control. He smashed the prison's visitation phone. He banged his head against the walls, beat the iron doors with his fists. Prison guards rushed in, barely managing to pin him down. He screamed like a wild beast trapped in a cage. A despairing, guttural roar. "Zoe Morgan, you're mine. How dare you marry someone else?" Zoe Morgan? My wedding to Luke Adams was held in a church. Sunlight streamed through stained glass windows, falling upon my white gown, warm and pure. Luke Adams stood by my side, holding my hand tightly. My brother, my only family, officiated the ceremony himself. He looked at me, his eyes slightly red, voice choked with emotion. "Luke, I entrust my sister to you. Treat her well. Make her happy, happier than anyone else ever could." I looked at him, then at Luke Adams, smiling through my tears. "Brother, I will." Eventually, news of my wedding reached Matthew Scott. He began a hunger strike, refusing food and water. Day after day he simply stared at the ceiling, trying to end his life of guilt and suffering. Desperate to see me, to say sorry with his own lips. After he fell unconscious, prison guards forced him to take nutritional injections. Just enough to keep him alive. Unable to die, unable to live freely, this became his greatest torment. A year later, I became pregnant. Luke Adams was ecstatic, as if he wanted to hold every moment of me in his hands. He canceled all classes, declined academic conferences. Every day he found new ways to prepare nutritious meals for me, to walk with me, to care for me. I loved resting in his arms, and I often thought if my past self could see this, she would cry from envy. After 10 months, I gave birth to a daughter. She looked just like Luke Adams. Especially those eyes. We named her Lauren Mitchell, Mitchell symbolizing safety and peace. My brother held little Lauren Mitchell, beaming. "It's perfect. Zoe, now you have Lauren Mitchell and Luke. You'll have a lifetime of peace and happiness." I nodded, smiling, feeling a fulfillment I had never known. All the dark betrayals of the past seemed like another lifetime. Distant, like a hazy nightmare. On Lauren Mitchell's first birthday, I received a package from back home. No sender information. Curious, I opened it. Inside was a letter and a handmade cloth bunny. "Dear Sister Zoe Morgan, greetings in writing. Please forgive my boldness. I don't know your current name or how you are now. I could only send this to your brother's company, hoping it might somehow reach you. I am Julia Reed." My hand froze slightly on the paper at her name. Luke Adams noticed and gently held my hand. "What's wrong?" I shook my head, signaling that I was fine, and continued reading. "I know it's too late now and my apology may seem feeble. But I still want to say I'm sorry. Truly, truly sorry. I grew up in an unfortunate home, with an alcoholic, gambling stepfather, and a weak mother. I studied hard, went to teachers' college, thinking I could escape that swamp, but they clung to me tightly. When I met Matthew Scott, I thought I had found a savior. He helped me pay off my debts, gave me a place to live, bought me beautiful clothes. I clung to the warmth and protection he offered, naively believing that this was love. That day at the pharmacy, when you got her protecting me, I felt an overwhelming guilt. I didn't know you were Matthew Scott's wife. If I had, I would never have chosen to be with him in the first place. All the kindness he showed me was insignificant compared to the pain you endured. Later, I left that city, found a new job and met people who treated me sincerely. I finally understood that true love isn't about possession or control, it's about respect and equality. Sister Zoe Morgan, I don't know what you went through to be reborn, but I'm truly happy for you. This little stuffed bunny is handmade. A belated birthday gift. I knew you liked Travis. Seeing it in the sketchbook you left in Matthew Scott's study inspired me. I hope you and your family are always happy and safe. With respect, Julia Reed. Licked. Adams wrapped his arms around me from behind, resting his chin lightly on the top of my head. Everything's past us now. Love. I leaned into his embrace. It's all over. It's no wonder Matthew Scott once stirred feelings in people. Then, the call came from Huen. Zoe, Matthew Scott is dead. The scissors in my hand froze midair. The guards said it was suicide. He hanged himself with a bed sheet by the window, and when they found him, he was already cold. He left a note. Just 3 words, I'm sorry. All of his estate has been transferred to your name, as compensation. On the other end, my brother continued speaking, but I heard nothing. I realized that when hatred is completely washed away by time, all that remains is emptiness. Zoe, are you listening? I am, I whispered, returning to reality. Brother, I understand now. I hung up and looked up. Not far away, Luke Adams held Lauren Mitchell's hand as they flew a kite on the lawn. Sunlight bathed them, a golden glow surrounding them. It was a scene I had never dared to dream of. I dropped the scissors and ran toward them, holding my husband and daughter tightly in my arms. Matthew Scott was dead. Zoe Morgan was gone. The one who survived was Sue King. From that moment on, my world belonged to warmth and springtime. No more ice, no more